It all began on a crisp morning in Los Angeles when Michael Turner, a 42-year-old automotive journalist known for his skepticism toward emerging tech, received a call that would change not only his career but the way he viewed the future of transportation. Michael had spent over 2 decades test-driving vehicles from every corner of the world: gas guzzlers, hybrids, luxury EVs, even concept cars that promised to redefine the meaning of mobility. But nothing could have prepared him for what he was about to encounter. The voice on the other end of the call belonged to a PR executive named Sarah Mitchell, a woman whose tone was calm but carried the weight of something monumental. "Michael," she said, "we've arranged something special for you. Something no one else in the States has done yet. We want you to be the first American to test drive Africa's revolutionary self-charging electric vehicle." At first, Michael chuckled, assuming it was another overhyped green tech gimmick, the kind he had debunked in countless articles. "Self-charging? You mean solar?" he asked, leaning back in his chair, his brow raised in disbelief. Sarah paused for a moment, then spoke softly, almost as if to emphasize the gravity of her words.
"Not solar, Michael.
Not hydrogen either.
This is something different.
It generates its own power without fuel, without charging stations. Completely autonomous energy. And we want you to take it for a spin." Michael's skepticism deepened. He had heard rumors of perpetual energy machines, self-powered cars that never needed a plug, but every time, they had turned out to be hoaxes or clever marketing ploys hiding a conventional energy source. Yet something in Sarah's voice stopped him from dismissing it outright. There was conviction there, and an undercurrent of urgency he couldn't ignore. "Where and when?" he finally asked, half out of curiosity, half because he needed a good story for his next column. "Tomorrow. We'll fly you out to Phoenix. The car is waiting there." And just like that, Michael's world tilted on its axis. The next morning, Michael found himself on a private jet headed to Arizona, his mind swirling with questions. Who built this car? Why was the first test happening in the US? And most importantly, how in the world could a car power itself? The moment he landed, a black SUV whisked him away to a secluded testing facility on the outskirts of the desert. As they drove, the driver, a tall, silent man in a suit, offered no details. Michael pressed for answers, but the man simply said, "You'll see soon enough." They finally arrived at a sprawling compound surrounded by high fences and guarded by security checkpoints. Inside, the facility buzzed with an odd mix of corporate polish and experimental secrecy. Engineers in white lab coats moved about briskly, and Michael noticed cameras discreetly mounted on the walls, recording every angle. Sarah was waiting for him near the main hangar. She was a striking woman in her late 30s, with sharp green eyes and a confidence that suggested she knew exactly what kind of storm she was about to unleash on the automotive industry. "Welcome, Michael," she said warmly, extending her hand.
Thank you for coming."
"You've certainly piqued my curiosity," Michael replied, shaking her hand firmly. "So, where's this miracle machine you've been teasing me about?" Sarah smiled and gestured toward a massive set of steel doors.
"Right this way."
The doors creaked open, revealing a sleek, futuristic vehicle that looked like something out of a sci-fi film. It was an SUV, but unlike any Michael had ever seen. Its body gleamed in a deep metallic silver, with smooth curves and aerodynamic contours that seemed to defy conventional design. There were no visible exhaust pipes, no fuel caps, and most notably, no charging ports. Michael circled the car slowly, running his hand along its flawless surface. "This is it?" he asked, his voice tinged with doubt. "Looks beautiful, I'll give you that. But how does it work?"
"What is the catch?"
Sarah walked closer, lowering her voice.
"No catch, Michael."
This is the result of over a decade of research by an African inventor named Daniel Okoro. He built a powertrain that generates energy using principles most scientists dismissed as impossible. The car creates and stores its own electricity indefinitely. Michael raised an eyebrow.
"Perpetual motion?"
"You're telling me this thing violates the laws of thermodynamics?"
Sarah chuckled softly.
"Let's just say it challenges them." Daniel's system uses a combination of advanced electromagnetic induction and something he calls resonant energy transfer. You'll get the technical briefing later, but for now, all you need to know is this. Once the system is activated, the car never needs fuel, never needs charging, and produces zero emissions. Michael exhaled slowly, trying to wrap his head around it. "Sounds like magic." It's not magic, Sarah said firmly. It's engineering. And you're about to drive it. She handed him a key fob. Michael stared at it for a moment, then at the car. He felt a strange mix of excitement and apprehension. If this was real, it wasn't just a car, it was a revolution. They opened the driver's door, and Michael slid inside. The interior was as stunning as the exterior, minimalist yet luxurious, with leather seats that felt like clouds and a dashboard that glowed softly with holographic displays. There was no start button. Instead, the moment he placed his hand on the steering wheel, the vehicle came alive with a gentle hum, as if greeting him. "It's ready," Sarah said from the passenger seat. "Drive." Michael hesitated for a split second, then shifted into gear. The car glided forward effortlessly, the acceleration smooth yet powerful. He pressed the pedal harder, and the SUV surged ahead with a quiet force that sent chills down his spine.
Nos enginoises, nos vibrations, juste pure, silent speed.
They exited the compound and headed toward the open desert highway.
The road stretched endlessly under a blazing blue sky, and Michael let the car run free.
The speedometer climbed rapidly, 60, 80, 100 miles per hour, and the vehicle remained rock solid, its handling precise and graceful. Michael glanced at the energy gauge on the dashboard. It hadn't moved. "Unbelievable," he muttered under his breath.
You like it?
Sarah asked, smiling. "Like it? This feels otherworldly," Michael replied, gripping the wheel tighter. "But how do I know this isn't smoke and mirrors?"
Hidden battery, a backup generator, something like that. Sarah shook her head.
"There's no backup.
What you see is what you get.
The system is self-sustaining. Drive it all day, all week, all year. It will never run out of power."
Michael's mind raced.
If this was true, it would dismantle entire industries overnight. Oil companies, power grids, charging networks, they'd all become obsolete. He glanced at Sarah. "Do you have any idea what this means for the world?" "Oh, we know," she said quietly. "That's why this test is so important." As they drove deeper into the desert, Michael began to notice something strange. The longer he drove, the more alive the car seemed to feel, as if it wasn't just a machine, but something sentient, aware of its own purpose. He brushed the thought aside, attributing it to his imagination, but the sense lingered. Suddenly, Sarah's phone buzzed. She checked the screen, and her expression tightened.
What is it?
Michael asked. "We might have company," she said. "Company. Competitors. There are people who don't want this technology to see the light of day. If they find us out here, things could get complicated." Michael frowned. "You're telling me there are people willing to kill over a car?" Sarah met his gaze.
Not just a car, Michael.
The future of energy. Billions, no trillions, of dollars are at stake. There are governments, corporations, entire economies built on the status quo. If this car becomes mainstream, it changes everything. Michael felt a chill run down his spine as he gripped the wheel tighter. He looked in the rearview mirror. A black SUV had appeared on the horizon, closing in fast. "Who are they?" he asked. "People who play dirty," Sarah said calmly. "Keep driving." Michael's pulse quickened as he pressed the accelerator, feeling the raw surge of silent power propel the SUV forward like a bullet. The futuristic vehicle responded instantly, gliding over the asphalt with supernatural grace as the black SUV in the distance grew larger in the mirror. His mind scrambled to process the surreal turn of events. Here he was, in the middle of an Arizona desert, behind the wheel of a car that defied the fundamental rules of physics, being chased by unknown operatives who apparently had every intention of keeping this miracle from reaching the public eye. Who are these people? Michael demanded, his voice tight. Sarah's green eyes were fixed on the mirror. Could be energy lobbyists. Could be foreign agents. All I know is they've been sniffing around for months. If they get their hands on this car, or on you, it won't end well. Michael swore under his breath. "And you didn't think to mention this before?" "Would you have come if I had?" She shot back. Fair point, he thought grimly. The desert highway stretched endlessly before them, shimmering in the midday heat, and he pushed the speedometer past 120 miles per hour. The car didn't flinch. No engine strain, no hint of power loss. If anything, it felt like it could keep going forever. "Does this thing have a top speed?" he asked, trying to sound calm. Sarah's lips curved into a faint smile. You're not even close yet. That gave him a small surge of confidence as he pressed harder, the landscape blurring into streaks of gold and blue. The pursuing SUV was still coming though, two of them now, their dark shapes slicing through the heat haze like predators. This isn't just about energy anymore, Michael muttered. This feels bigger. Sarah nodded, her jaw tightening. Bigger than you can imagine. If they catch us, Michael, they'll erase every trace of this project, including us. Michael gritted his teeth.
Not happening.
He swerved off the main road onto a dirt trail that snaked between rocky outcroppings, kicking up clouds of dust as the car devoured the rugged terrain like it was nothing. The ride was impossibly smooth, the suspension adapting in real time to every bump and dip, as if the vehicle were floating rather than rolling. I thought this was an SUV, Michael said in disbelief. It's like an off-road beast on steroids. It's more than an SUV, Sarah replied, gripping the dash as they careened around a bend. It was designed for endurance, adaptability, complete autonomy. They barreled down the trail, the black SUVs closing in with relentless determination. One of them tried to cut them off, pulling alongside, and Michael caught a glimpse of masked men inside, their faces hidden behind tinted visors. This is insane, he growled, jerking the wheel to avoid a collision. You're telling me these guys are willing to kill us just to keep a car secret? Sarah's voice was low, grim. Not just a car. The death of an empire.
The Energy Empire.
Do you understand what this technology means, Michael?
No more oil wars.
No more gas stations.
No power grid, no energy monopoly. Imagine a world where every home, every city, every vehicle powers itself.
That's freedom on a scale the world has never seen, and to some people, that's the most dangerous idea imaginable. Her words hit him like a punch to the gut. For the first time, Michael truly grasped the magnitude of what he was driving. This wasn't just a breakthrough, it was a paradigm shift, a threat to trillion-dollar industries and the geopolitical balance of power. And people were willing to kill for it. The chase roared on through the desert, a high-stakes ballet of speed and survival, until Michael spotted an abandoned airstrip in the distance, a flat expanse of cracked asphalt baking under the sun. Hang on, he said, veering toward it. The SUV fishtailed slightly as they hit the tarmac, and Michael floored the accelerator. The self-charging EV surged forward with a burst of speed that made his stomach lurch. The pursuing vehicles weren't far behind, but suddenly, something extraordinary happened. The car responded to his desperation, as if reading his thoughts. The dashboard display shifted, glowing with unfamiliar symbols, and Michael felt a strange vibration through the steering wheel, subtle, almost imperceptible, like a heartbeat. What the hell is it doing? He shouted over the roar of wind.
Sarah size end.
It's engaging the secondary system. I didn't think Daniel had activated that yet. Secondary system?
Just drive.
Michael gritted his teeth and held on as the vehicle unleashed a surge of acceleration so violent it pinned them to their seats. The world outside became a blur of color and motion as they rocketed down the airstrip at what had to be well over 200 miles per hour. The black SUVs faded into the distance, swallowed by the shimmering horizon. And then, just as abruptly as it began, the burst ended. The car slowed to a steady cruise, purring like a predator that had just demonstrated its dominance. Michael's hands were slick with sweat as he eased off the pedal. Jesus, he whispered. What was that?
Sarah exhaled shakily. Adaptive energy amplification.
It sensed a threat and responded by pushing output beyond normal limits. You just hit speeds most hypercars can only dream of, and you did it without burning a drop of fuel or draining a battery. Michael stared at her, stunned. You're telling me this car can think? Sarah hesitated, then nodded slightly.
Not in the way you think.
It's not sentient, but its systems are designed to learn, to predict, to optimize in real time. Daniel wanted it to be more than a machine. He wanted it to feel alive. Michael leaned back, his heart still racing. Alive, he repeated softly, glancing around the cabin. The car sat in eerie silence, its displays glowing faintly, as if watching him. For the first time, Michael wondered if maybe, in some strange way, it was alive. They drove on in silence for a while, the sun sinking lower on the horizon, painting the desert in hues of orange and crimson. Finally, Sarah spoke. We need to get you somewhere safe. Those men won't stop. They'll regroup, come back harder. And what about the car? Michael asked. If they want it that badly, they can't have it, Sarah said firmly.
Daniel trusted me to protect it. And now, I'm trusting you.
Michael met her gaze, reading the resolve in her eyes. He felt a surge of something he hadn't felt in years. Not fear, not adrenaline, but purpose. He was no longer just a journalist chasing a story. He was part of something bigger, something that could change the course of history. What do you need me to do? He asked. Sarah's expression softened slightly. First we disappear. Then we plan our next move. Because after what happened today, there's no turning back. They reached a remote safe house hidden among jagged cliffs, its weathered walls blending seamlessly with the rock. Inside, the air was cool and smelled faintly of cedar. Michael parked the car in an underground garage and followed Sarah into a dimly lit room filled with maps, laptops, and stacks of encrypted hard drives. A large photo on the wall caught his eye. A smiling man in his 50s with deep brown skin and intelligent eyes that seemed to radiate warmth. That's him. Michael asked.
Daniel Okoro.
Sarah nodded.
The man who made the impossible possible.
Michael studied the photo, feeling a strange kinship with the inventor he had never met. Where is he now?
Sarah S. Expression d'Arken.
Missing.
For 2 weeks. Michael froze.
Missing? As in, we don't know if he's alive, Sarah said quietly. The last time I spoke to him, he warned me that forces were closing in. He said if anything happened to him, the car had to survive. And now, it's up to us. Michael sank into a chair, his mind reeling. Missing inventors, shadowy enemies, a car that could rewrite the laws of energy. It all sounded like the plot of a thriller, except this was no fiction. This was real.
Deadly real.
Sarah poured 2 glasses of water and handed him one. You still think this is just a story for your column?
Michael shook his head slowly. No.
This is the biggest story in the world. And if we don't tell it right, if we don't protect this car, he didn't finish the sentence, but the weight of it hung between them. Sarah set her glass down, her eyes burning with determination. Then let's make sure we do.
Outside, the desert night descended like a curtain, star pricking the sky in silent witness.
And somewhere out there in the darkness, men with guns were hunting for them. But inside that garage, beneath layers of rock and secrecy, sat a machine that could end their power forever. And for Michael Turner, there was no going back. The night was thick with tension, a blanket of silence broken only by the faint hum of electronic equipment in the safe house. Michael sat hunched over a laptop, his fingers flying across the keys as he pulled up every article, patent filing, and obscure forum post connected to Daniel Okoro. The deeper he dug, the more extraordinary and unsettling the story became. Daniel wasn't just an inventor, he was a visionary who had spent most of his life defying the limitations others accepted as gospel. Born in a small village in Nigeria, Daniel had shown an uncanny aptitude for engineering from a young age, dismantling old radios and generators to understand their inner workings. By the time he was 15, he had built a crude wind turbine that powered his entire household, earning him the nickname the boy who lit up the night. But it wasn't until his early 30s that Daniel began pursuing the holy grail of energy, true self-sustainability. He vanished from the public eye for nearly a decade, working in secret labs across Africa, funded by a patchwork of private investors who believed in his dream. And now, if Sarah was right, that dream sat in the garage downstairs, glowing like a beacon of hope or a target. Michael leaned back in his chair, rubbing his eyes. Every instinct screamed that this was bigger than anything he'd ever reported on. Wars had been fought over oil. Economies had collapsed over energy crises. What would happen when the world discovered a car that could power itself forever? He didn't have to wonder for long. Sarah appeared in the doorway, her expression taut. "They've pinged us," she said. Michael straightened. "What do you mean, pinged us?"
Hors Secure Network. Someones probing for access.
"They know we're online." Michael's heart thudded. "So they can trace us?" "If we don't shut down now, yes." Sarah moved quickly, yanking cables, powering down servers, plunging the room into semi-darkness.
Michael S. pulse raced.
"How do they even know we're here?" Sarah shot him a grim look. "Because nothing stays secret forever. Not when you're holding the most valuable piece of technology on the planet. Michael swallowed hard, his mind churning. So what's the plan? We can't just sit here waiting for them to kick down the door. Sarah nodded. We won't. At first light, we move.
There's a place in Nevada. À l'Ab Daniel Trusted.
If we can get the car there, we buy ourselves time. Maybe even answers. And if we can't? Michael asked. Sarah's silence was answer enough. Michael exhaled slowly, trying to steady his nerves. He wasn't built for this cloak and dagger madness. He was a writer, for God's sake. His battles were fought with words, not bullets. And yet, deep down, he knew there was no walking away. Not now. Not when the fate of something so monumental rested in their hands. Hours crawled by. Michael dozed fitfully on a couch, waking at every creak and whisper of wind.
At down, Sarah.
Shook him awake.
Time to go.
They moved quickly, loading the car with essential gear, food, water, a duffel bag of cash. Michael slid behind the wheel, the interior of the self-charging EV glowing softly like a living thing greeting its driver. Sarah climbed into the passenger seat, her eyes scanning the horizon. Ready? She asked.
Michael managed a tight smile.
As I'll ever be. They pulled out onto the dirt road, the morning sun casting long shadows across the desert. For a while, the world seemed eerily calm, as if holding its breath. But Michael knew better. Somewhere out there, predators were circling. They reached the highway and merged onto the endless ribbon of asphalt stretching toward Nevada. Michael couldn't help glancing at the energy display on the dashboard. It remained at full capacity, unwavering. No gas. No charging.
Just infinite motion.
It still blows my mind, he said quietly. Sarah smiled faintly. You're not the only one.
When Daniel first démonstrait tout me, il criait.
I realized what this meant, not just for cars, but for everything. No more coal plants.
No more blackout.
Every home could have its own generator, clean and endless. He wanted to give the world freedom. Michael looked at her. And now he's missing. Sarah's jaw tightened. Because freedom is dangerous to those who profit from chains.
Michael let the word sink in.
Freedom. Chains. The entire energy sector was a web of control. Governments, corporations, lobbies, all feeding off dependence. And here they were, carrying the knife that could cut that web to pieces. Hours passed in tense silence, the desert giving way to rolling plains. Michael's mind wandered to Daniel. What kind of man devotes his life to a dream knowing it could paint a target on his back? He imagined Daniel alone in some dimly lit workshop, hands raw, eyes burning with obsession, chasing a vision no one else could see. And then, from the corner of his eye, Michael caught something in the mirror.
A glint of metal. A shape on the horizon.
His stomach clenched. We've got company, he muttered. Sarah twisted in her seat. 2 black SUVs, growing larger by the second. How the hell did they find us?
Michael growled.
Doesn't matter, Sarah said, her voice tight.
Just drive.
Michael slammed his foot on the accelerator, and the car responded like a wild stallion unleashed. The speedometer soared past 120, 140, 160. Wind screamed around them, the landscape warping into a blur. The SUVs gave chase, engines roaring, but they were no match for the silent fury of Daniel's creation. They're still coming, Michael said through gritted teeth. They won't stop, Sarah shot back. Not until we're dead or they have the car. Michael swerved onto a service road, gravel spraying like gunfire as they tore through open fields. The car handled the terrain effortlessly, its adaptive suspension absorbing every jolt. But the SUVs were relentless, closing the gap inch by inch. Then, without warning, one of them swerved hard, ramming their rear bumper. Michael fought the wheel, heart pounding. They're trying to spin us out.
Another hit, hard this time.
Sarah braced herself.
Push it, Michael. Push it now.
Michael didn't need telling twice. He slammed the pedal to the floor, and the EV exploded forward with a surge of raw power that felt almost supernatural. The dashboard symbols flared again, strange and pulsing, and Michael felt that same vibration, the heartbeat. The car wasn't just accelerating. It was awakening. The speed ripped the breath from his lungs as the world outside dissolved into streaks of color. The SUVs vanished from the mirror, swallowed by distance. Then, just as before, the burst ended, and they coasted to a steady glide.
Michael gripped the wheel, his knuckle white. What? What the hell is this thing? Sarah stared straight ahead, her voice barely a whisper.
It's the future, and it's scared.
The word sent a chill down Michael's spine.
Scared.
Could a machine feel fear?
Or was it just reacting, defending itself, and them? He didn't know. He wasn't sure he wanted to know. They drove in silence, the tension coiling tighter with every mile. Finally, Sarah spoke.
We can't keep running like this.
Sooner or later, they'll corner us.